If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then the UK Property Market Stat Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I produce the UK Stat Show along with a leading member of the UK property market. This week I'm joined by Verona Frankish, who was voted in the top 10 most influential people in the UK when it comes to the property market. She is the boss lady of Yopa, who's either the 6th or 7th largest estate agent in the UK, depending on which month you look at, and she certainly knows her onions. Thanks for joining me today.
It's a pleasure, as always, Chris.
Lovely. Absolutely lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, what is this show about if you've not watched before? Basically, it's about an hour long. The first half talks about the UK property market, looking at house prices, we're looking at rents, we're looking at sales, we're looking at listings. Why is that important? Well, the British are obsessed about the property market. When the land registry details come out, it's front page news. The problem is that the data they're looking at is 6, 7, 8 or 9 months old. The Halifax and Nationwide are looking at data from 2 months ago, 3 months ago. We're looking at last week. We're looking at house prices. We're looking at demand. We're looking at supply, exchanges, listings, price reductions, everything to look at what's happening in the property market so you can make a better decision, whether you're an estate agent, letting agent, a buyer or a seller, or just someone that's just geeky about property data. The first half, as I said, talks about the UK property market. The second half talks about a town or a city where we really deep dive and go and look at the estate agents in that town. Now, this week, we're going to Luton. Now, if you're from Luton, you'll want to watch that because we're basically going to be analysing all you Luton agents, how well you perform, who's the best, who's the worst, who could improve. Now, if you're not from Luton, you might find that awfully boring. However, we're going to be using a bit of kit which shows which agents are the best. So by looking at this data on Luton, you could have the same data on your own town, so you could prove to homeowners that you're a better estate agent. So if you're being battled by overvaluing, cheap fees, and all the other things that ruin estate agency, then this could be for you. So do hang back for the second half where we go to Luton. Right, without any further ado, Verona, shall we go and look at this week's Stadaroonies?
Let's do it.
So as always, ladies and gentlemen, we always start with listings because everything starts with listings in the estate agency game. And I'll just spend probably a minute talking about them and then Verona will come in. So immediately we are on this cumulatively year to date, 61,000 listings. If we look at the on a week by week basis, the 2025 is the white line. We can see here that we are certainly we started really well compared to other week ones, and again week 2, really impressive sort of numbers there. The average price of a property coming onto the market is £423,000, and as I said, 33,741 properties. So looks really good, doesn't it? But there is a but.
It sure does.
There's a but coming in here, and I just need to say for the record, ladies and gentlemen, before we kick off, we always start the weeks on a Monday, and week 1 started on the 6th of January, which means that week 2 is later. So before you all get your glad rags out and your flags and the champagne popping, because I tell you here and now, the sales numbers are truly amazing. They need to be taken with a pinch of salt. So thoughts on listings, Verona?
Yeah, you're right. They are overinflated based on when the days of the week are compared to 2024 particularly. However, I think it's fair to say we've still had a solid start to January. We're still making progress year on year. Momentum and sentiment definitely feels more positive than the last few Januaries as we've started the last couple of years, I would say. And there's a number of prevailing winds that are kind of playing in our favor right now. So recently we had inflation reduce. There is some noise that we'll have a base rate cut potentially in February. There is the stamp duty tailwind that's kind of helping us as we get out the blocks in January. So overall, I think we've had a solid start.
And again, just looking at I cannot disagree with you. You're absolutely right there. I mean, again, we say this most weeks, but if you've not watched the show before, ladies and gentlemen, the number of listings that we're looking at on a weekly basis between now and March are going to be increasing slightly from the mid 30s all the way through to the mid to late 30s. Then again, we will then go through the roller coaster ride of Easter and the 2 spring bank holidays. Okay, so again, it's just always good to know. Then she always
Which this year, Chris, just on that point, this year is obviously going to coincide with the end of the stamp duty holiday for so we're actually going to enter that's definitely very much on my mind at the minute. We're going to enter April to a dip for a number of reasons.
Indeed. Just coming back again, she drifts off through the summer. That's the August bank holiday, and then the drift off down. I just find it absolutely amazing that when you overlay the different years, the pattern is almost identical.
Pretty much exactly the same. Yeah, exactly. It just depends on the dates. It moves slightly to the left or right, but the pattern exactly the same.
And what is also interesting is that I've got my VA now to look at all the region figures, and we've got the regional figures back 5 years now. And what is particularly interesting, and there's one outlier on this, which is the Southwest. Don't ask me why, but I'm going to do some more homework on that. But everything moves up and down: listings, sales, price reductions, exchanges. Everything stays within its lane, and they all move up and down like the tide. I find it absolutely fascinating that you find that if London's having a good time, most of the UK in the different regions, and they all go up and down by roughly the same percentages, apart from the Southwest, which is, I don't know why, especially with lettings, absolutely strange as hell.
I mean, maybe the holiday nature, the over-indexing of the holiday nature in the Southwest is a reason for that.
I mean, just to give you an idea, I mean, again, we'll just pull this up now, ladies and gentlemen, is the growth in rents, okay? And you can see here that since 2016, that has been the growth of rents by different regions. And you can see there are some similarities around that 40% mark. Look, this is interesting. London is much lower. Actually, after you take out inflation, rents in London and outer London are actually cheaper today than they are in 2016. And if anyone comes back with the retort, what about wages? Wages are actually better today than they were in 2016 in real terms after inflation. I know sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but that's what's happened. But again, the Southwest here, the rents have just gone through the roof, and I'd love to know.
Phenomenal growth.
It is.
It's unsustainable as well. It's just not sustainable. And maybe the starting point in the Southwest in 2016 was a lower base, and compared to London, London would have been a higher base. So, I guess it's all relative in those areas. But yeah, 78% growth is staggering.
I mean, look, here we go. It's the third line down, which is the Southwest, and it was nice and static, but it just has taken off. I know it. I mean, look, there was one point where the average rent in the Southwest was actually as higher than outer London, which again is absolutely. Again, just keeping an eye on that one. And again, just whilst we're here about rents, because again, that's just the next. We just go down rabbit holes. This just shows you the different average rents per year by different region. And the anomaly here, ladies and gentlemen, is inner London. So what happened is that blue, that line there was, if memory says well, was COVID when everyone left the London. So if you rented in London in 2020, you've seen an almost 50% increase in rent. But compared to 2016, 2017, or even 2018, the growth is hardly anything compared to other areas. So
I guess in percentage terms, I see that. But if you look in absolute terms, pounds and pence, it's still a significant uplift because the base level in London was already inflated. And that's the point I was, I guess, trying to make.
I mean, interestingly, if you take London out of the average rents, it brings the UK average down by £800 because it's such a huge market, and B, it's such huge numbers.
Exactly. Yeah.
just London, when it comes to London, really screws up the UK property market on the stats. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll show you that in something else in a second. Right, price reductions. This is a monthly graph. So we're looking at what percentage of your stock have you reduced. Now we do this on a monthly basis. We showed this graph last week. There's always a drop off because everyone goes on holiday or it's a Christmas break. So again, in the autumn, we were reducing 1 in 8 of our properties, 12 to 13%. So I'd like to hope that we can get back up those sort of figures because remember, we're only selling 53% of the homes that we're actually listing. When I say
Yeah.
exchanging, which again, it's atrocious. The average price of a property being reduced is 398, and the price reduction's 21,000. I mean, I know we're sounding like a broken record, but we're not reducing enough.
We do. Do you know, it's going to be super interesting this year, Chris, because all the dynamics, and I know you do this fantastic graph, I don't know if you've got it in here, but where we compare a buyer's market versus a seller's market, and all the indicators on how the dynamics have changed is suggesting that this year will definitely be much more of a buyer's market. So there's loads of buyers. They're going to have more choice. We're not going to see the fights in terms of bidding wars for property. And that is going to mean that pricing is going to be ultra important, probably more than ever. And we're starting to see, obviously, house prices are going to grow this year. We'll likely see 3 to 4% of growth this year. It's going to be so important, A, to secure the listing, but also B, to create the right demand and attraction and get the right eyeballs on your properties this year. So if your stock isn't priced effectively, then there's going to be lots more for buyers to look at. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out this year.
I'm going to ask you a question in a second, but this is the number of properties for sale at close of play on the 31st of December. It will obviously jump in Jan because we get more stock coming in, withdrawn.
Yeah.
Comparing apples with apples, and you can see here that we've got around 10% more stock than we had hardly on the market in 18 or 19.
Yeah.
Now, the issue of overvaluing, I get shot at, which again I don't mind because I like to, you know me, I like to throw a hand grenade in and get discussions going.
You do?
Okay. Is that I believe there's such a thing as ethical overvaluing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can explain just for what people are watching what I consider ethical or unethical, and then I'd like your opinion. And please don't say yes if you disagree with me. Please.
Sure. I won't.
And actually, ladies and gentlemen, she won't. I can tell you here and now. Verona does speak her mind, and that's why we get her back every time because she's absolutely excellent value for money. So, ethical overvaluing is where you say, right, I think your house is worth £400,000, but I can appreciate you want to, let's see if we can try it at say 425, because we know the other agents have suggested that. But what we're going to do is we're going to put it on at 425 and we're going to book an appointment in 3 weeks time to come back to your house and actually look at the marketing, because if a house doesn't sell, it's either the price or the marketing. We'll make sure you're happy with the marketing before we launch. We'll measure it, and if it hasn't sold, we will then bring it down, and you write that into the sold agency, as opposed to unethical overvaluing is whack it on at 425, and then the valuer goes into witness protection, never can be contacted again, and leaving it to young Floss or young Jim, the negotiator that doesn't know how to get prices down, and then slices off the £5,000 over the 26-week sold agency, and she still doesn't sell. Is that ethical? The first one.
Look, I don't think there's, it's not an exact science. Valuation is not an exact science. There's a lot of variables that go into it. Yes, absolutely, you should use your data, but also use your judgment call, and you also use the conversation with the customer. What are they trying to achieve? How quickly do they want to move? Have they found something else? Is time of the essence? Is maximizing the price more important to them, etc.? There's a number of different factors that goes into that conversation. If you are entering into an agreement with a customer where you're putting something on the market over the price that you think it will achieve, as long as you're having an honest conversation, the customer understands what you're doing and you've agreed together, and then there's a strategy for the next 14 days. And honestly, if you've overvalued it and you haven't overvalued it, and you haven't had engagement or interaction or interest from potential viewers in the first few days, then that's enough evidence to go to the customer and say, look, keeping an eye on it. We haven't had much, but I'm just managing your expectations for a couple of weeks' time based on our initial conversation. So managing that expectation from the customer is super important.
Sounds like what you're saying there is the estate agent needs to be in regular contact and communication with the vendors. I mean, come on,
Go figure.
This is groundbreaking stuff. I thought we put the house on the market and then just let it fester and go to the next.
Put it on Rightmove and let's go. Yeah,
back it on Rightmove.
And I guess the other angle to that, and this is really sort of is Rightmove data that they shared with us at the end of last year. There is a lot of data to support the fact that if it is overvalued initially, based on what the algorithm tells us it's worth, then it does diminish the opportunity of selling it in totality because you lose some of that momentum from the first couple of weeks where it gets on the market. In particular, if you're not going back on a regular basis and communicating with the vendor. Now, if you do it and you act really, really quickly, the evidence improves on your chance of selling and chance of completion. So as long as you're using that data to agree that with the customer and they understand the risks and you're sharing those risks together, then that's ethical, in my opinion.
You're absolutely so right. I mean, what is interesting, as you know, each week, ladies and gentlemen, we go to a town. There's an agent in Southend called Gilbert and Rose, and they overvalue like dogs, but their exchange ratio to listings is really, really fantastic. And you can tell that they must be doing ethical overvaluing because they're going in, pulling it on the market for a fuller price and getting it down. So you can, by reading the stats, they're overvaluing, their price reductions are really high, yet their exchange ratio is high. Normally, you can tell if the overvaluing and the withdrawal, the price reductions are high, but the exchanges are low. That shows that is changing the price much later in the process. I mean, just to give again and some more stats to back it up, and against the stat I do bring out most shows, but some of you might have not watched the show before. If a property goes sale agreed within the first 25 days, ladies and gentlemen, the chances of that sale subsequently getting to exchange, which means you get paid, is 94%. If a property sale agrees over 100 days, the chances of that sale subsequently then getting to exchange, i.e. you getting paid, comes down to 56%.
And that totally backs up the Rightmove argument, really, because all that 25 days is dependent to a large extent on correct pricing. Obviously good marketing and a number of other factors, but actually pricing is one of the key criteria.
I would say 80% pricing. And don't get me wrong, I have friends in the business who do staging. The house will still sell, but it might get you an extra £200 on the posh house, okay?
Yes.
Great photographs might get you an extra 5 or 10 grand or whatever. But fundamentally, it really comes down to price. Okay, but you do need the other ones. This is just another graph here, which just shows you the percentage of homes leaving estate agents' books, how many of them are exchanging. And again, we always have an uplift in December, where it hit 59, but really, and that's another December there, and that's another December. But at the moment, throughout 24, 53% of homes that left estate agents' books were exchanged. The other 47% didn't exchange. Okay, let's get back. There you go, down rabbit holes.
We've gone down a million rabbit holes today.
That's okay. Don't worry, no one watches the show, so it's just me and you.
We're just having a good chat.
Good stuff. Let's move on to sales, and this week we're on 43,024, and there is the stats as well. So I mean, whoa, look at this. This is
47% growth on last year. That's phenomenal.
However, but I'm not allowed to say yet. The missus says I'm a yet person. I just think it's a softer word. But anyway, however, we are still in the 2-week phase. I've actually looked at the sales from the 1st of January to yesterday, and we are ahead of 24, but we're only ahead by a couple of grand, a couple of thousand. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't get excited, ladies and gentlemen. This is not the second coming. This is not champagne time. This is just the way the weeks fall. But we have to apply that because that's the way we've applied it since 2017. Still nice to have a look. Still nice to see those.
Exactly. And look, it's still, whether it's a couple of thousand more than last year, it's up on last year. I probably would have expected it to be up on last year more than a couple of thousand if you take the like for like, because of the stamp duty tailwind. And actually, I think, there's, broadly speaking, if you haven't sold the property by now, if you haven't gone sale agreed by now, the chances of it, in most cases, completing for the end of March is slim.
Yeah.
And I think now our narrative to our customers is all about managing expectations on that, because I think there will still be some agents who will say, oh yeah, we'll sell today, we'll get you through by the end of March. And, that would be, in a lot of cases, that would be a
March
false truth.
26th.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine that those couple of weeks are going to look like? Yeah. Here we go again. Another roller coaster.
Interesting.
Thank you, government.
Again, coming back to the weeks, it depends how many Saturdays and Sundays are in that mix. Because
Of course.
if there's a lot more Saturday weekdays in a particular, it really does
Yes.
turbo it. Like
Makes a massive difference.
Yeah. As you can say, ladies and gentlemen, Verona and myself are data geeks. Hashtag fanboy 28. Okay. Sell-through rate is a monthly stat, but we always bring it up on them. And this is the percentage of stock that you're selling. And again, it always drops in December. So it's around 11%, but we've been running around 15, so 15 or 16. So that will bounce back up. Isn't it interesting that the shape is okay? Let's think that's COVID, but the shape is always the same. Up, wobble, slowly drift down. Christmas up, slowly drift down. I just amazing. The shapes are always the same.
It is.
Again, this is one for you data geeks out there. The red line is the sales agreed as a percentage of listings. So again, going into December, we was, in terms of, if you put 10 houses on the market and you sold 9, that is a 90% sales agreed as a percentage of listings stat. And then the blues are just the number of listings. Again, just we like to see, this is the cyclical nature of the property market. Again, the number is not so relevant, it is the trend of this. So keep an eye on it. Sales agreed, the average price is 351. Before we and then we've got a few more on the sales. This graph here shows us the average asking price of a property coming on the market, which is the red line, and the orange line is the average price of a property going sale agreed. It's not the sale agreed price, it was the asking price of the property before she went sold. However, we've got data going back to 2017. The average between the average asking price and the average sale agreed price never changes. It did change at COVID to about 1 to 1.5%. So it's a good indication. What we're looking for here is the gap between the two.
Yeah.
Again, we'll just finish off on the sales, and we'll go to you, Verona, for your thoughts. That's just showing you that the average price selling is 351, and the average price coming on market 423. That is just that graph, but in a standalone week. That's not to say that houses at 423 are selling for 351. That's just saying the houses that are selling have an average price of 351. The average asking price of the stuff coming on market 423. Why is there such a gap? Because the bigger houses have a lower propensity to sell.
And there's less volume. Yeah.
Thoughts, sales. Again,
I mean, I think, we said it, that it's a solid start to the year, and sales have continued the momentum. We had a strong year last year on sales agreed. The momentum has definitely continued. As I said at the start, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this year plays out, because there's a number of different variables. House prices continue to increase this year. All the predictions suggest that that's the case. And mortgage interest rates are likely to decline. So in real terms, the skill is going to be demonstrating to consumers that they're not going to lose out by waiting. So either waiting to commit to a mortgage rate today that is likely to reduce in the months to come, and the trade-off of committing to a house price today that is likely to increase in the months to come, and therefore what impact does those two things when they interplay. And I guess the message is always the same, have your data, be knowledgeable about what's happening in the market to be able to have a meaningful conversation with the customer. But also, the reality whenever we're moving house, for most people, selling your house at a fair price that you feel is the right value, and finding one that fits the next stage of your life is ultimately what it matters, because over time, unless you're buying it for investment purposes or for a very short period of time, over time these things even out. And ultimately, the good thing is house prices are on the rise again, which gives most people confidence, which is the right thing to do. And mortgage interest rates are going in the right direction as well. So I think we've probably got the best dynamics this year than we've had for a number of years to give consumers the confidence to just get on with it.
Yep, let's just look at house prices as well. So here now, those of you who regularly watch the show, this comes out every month, know that the pound per square foot at sale agreed, which is the orange line, the direction of that and the level of growth or drop matches the land registry with an almost perfect match, 92% match. We're using the Pearson coefficient. Well, I can never say that word. So therefore, I know exactly what's going to happen to house prices between now and the summer. And again, I'll just pull up the stats now. 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. So we ended November, December with an average of 340 per square foot on sale agreed, and our average in the late spring, early summer was 340. So I can predict by that the house prices next 6 months will go up and down, but fundamentally will still be at the same place.
Okay? Interesting.
As you can see, if you look at the general trend of that orange line, it's kind of up and down a bit, up, then down, up, down. We'll judge that where it's going, but I'm just saying it might be 2 or 3% for the year, which if it is inflation in real terms, it's actually
And that's that's what the predictions are saying, between 2 and 4% by the end of the year. But and of course we don't know what other variables are going to be thrown in the mix this year because we inevitably have something.
If there's a black swan event, everything's off the window, because obviously sale agreed is subject contract.
Exactly.
That doesn't will affect that. But again, if nothing happens, so sale fall throughs as a percentage, we are quite low at 25.45. Okay, which is dropped down, which is a general trend. Okay, the natural numbers that we're actually looking at, let me just pull up the stats. 2 seconds. We haven't put that. I've got more windows open here than you could shake a stick at. So we 6,053, which is kind of what I would expect. This is the more important graph, in my humble opinion. The percentage of the pipeline that fell through. Again, we did have a drop in December, but I'd expect it to come back. But we're losing 6% of our sales pipeline a month. And again, the general trend there is in a downwards. So again,
that's good to see. Yeah.
But on the long term, there you go. That's the number of price reductions. Anything on this before we go to resi sales?
I don't think there's anything of note other than what you've said, Chris.
Good stuff. Right. Okay. So net sales for the end of week 2, 30,062. Sorry, let me say that again. 30,622, which is 54% higher than 2024. So let's get all the flags out. No, let's not.
A little bit more muted than the flags.
Yes. We've got to wait this month to even out, because we started later and there's more weekends, and that just messes figures up. So be aware of that, ladies and gentlemen. We're probably a couple of one or two ahead, but not that much more in real terms. And that's that graph there, the white line. As you can see here, 2021 was better, as you can see here, but we're a hell of a lot better than the pink line. But let the week settle in. That's it, just as a standalone week. Anything on net sales before we move on?
Nope.
And then a couple more graphs here, which I know some of you, the data geeks amongst you, do like. We've done home sale. So again, the red line is exchanges, the yellow line is withdrawals. Just a general trend. It's good to see. Okay. We've already seen that graph. We've already seen that graph as well. UK sales. This is sales in pipelines. I don't know if your pipeline was bigger going into Jan than it was the Jan before, but that's
yes,
yeah,
big time. Yeah, yeah.
So Q1
And
it's
again,
not short, will it? As for most agents, which is good.
exactly.
Okay. So, got a couple more extra graphs for the people that like your graphs. The green line shows the number of, this is the proportion of properties in your pipeline versus the number of properties for sale. And again, we're looking at the general trend. There's the raw numbers. Again, just nice to see. Ladies and gentlemen, all these graphs are available to download. If you go to the YouTube section, if you scroll down to the bottom in the description, there's a link there. You can download them. You are able to use them for yourself. You are able to use them on the valuations, but you are not to use them on social media, because my daytime job is I ghostwrite articles on local property markets and give these stats to my clients to publish on social media to talk about the national property market. But I have got no issue with you using in the homes for you. All the data has come from 20EA, so it's considered gold standard. And if you've got any queries on the data, give them a call, but it is truly exceptional data. The number of properties for sale on the 31st of December compared to the 31st of December 23. Again, all stock levels are up, but again, Southwest higher. That's interesting. Northern
Really
Ireland.
interesting, yeah.
Are you from you're Northern Ireland, aren't you?
I am. I'm a Derry girl from Northern Ireland, yeah. Yeah, but
Sydney.
that's interesting actually. The number they've definitely seen a resurgence. I recently sold a property in Northern Ireland actually, and they've seen a resurgence in the last couple of years. Significant demand, clearly not enough property to meet that demand. So their house prices are really growing. So it's a buoyant market in terms of achieving better prices, but clearly they're short on stock.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be employed now by the Northern Ireland Tourist Board. Everyone goes to Belfast, and it's a beautiful city to go to, and everyone goes to Newry if they're driving down to Dublin. But please,
Dublin,
yeah, please get yourself over the big mountain. I can't remember what's the name of the big mountain to go between.
oh my
Belfast.
God.
Okay, it's a
Did
big.
it come back to me? It's totally gone.
The big mountain.
The Ponderosa pub is at the top of it, if that helps. I can't remember.
All I know was this: it was sunny at the bottom, and when I got up to the top, it was snowing. Okay,
yeah.
So get yourself over that, and please go to Londonderry, stroke City of Derry, because that's
Stroke City. Yeah,
Stoke
yeah.
City.
Derry is a wonderful city, fabulous, and it's just full of wonderful people.
Loved it. Loved it. Yep.
It's great.
Okay. So we'll expect the check in the post from the tourist board there. Okay.
Well, not because I can't remember the name of the mountain, so I'm going to have to Google it because I can't remember. I'm ashamed.
Well, there you go, eh? But you can't be perfect at everything. Even you, Verona.
Well, I'm definitely not.
Number of properties to sell by different regions. Again, notice how everything moves up and down and stays in its lane, apart from inner London, which is that green one there. So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Funny how things move up and down. We've already done those private rents. I think we're at the end of the first part of the show. Right. Any
show.
What we'll do is this. Let's save all your let's do your thoughts now on what you've seen so far, and then we will go to Luton and have a look at that.
Okay, so my summary would be it's still early days in 2025, but for the first couple of weeks of the year, I think we've had a pretty positive start all round. There's still demand in the market. There's still significant interest from buyers. We're still bringing significant stock to market. We'd started out with a strong pipeline as it was, and we're adding more to that. As I mentioned, I think it's going to be really interesting because we're definitely moved into a buyer's market this year. So we need to keep an eye on correct pricing of our stock, going back and managing expectations with consumers, adjusting the price, doing all the right practices to to refresh that marketing strategy in order for us to secure sales, because there is going to be, and there is already, more choice for buyers, and there's going to be cheeky offers coming right, left and centre because they cotton onto that very quickly. So make sure you keep your sellers updated with what's happening in market. But yeah, I think a positive start, and feeling pretty positive about this year, actually.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a massive fan of whether it's a buyer's or a seller's market. And the best way to judge that is to go to Rightmove and calculate the number of properties that are currently for sale in your patch, okay? And I'll start off with the whole of your town. So if you're in Grantham, how many properties are for sale in Grantham? Write that number down. Next, then go to Rightmove and click on sold subject to contract. So if there were 500 properties for sale in Grantham and you click include sold subject to contract, and it goes from 500 to 700, by definition, 200 properties are sold subject to contract. Yep, with me so far?
Yeah, with you.
So therefore you divide the 200 by the 500, okay? And that will give you a percentage, okay? And the percentage is this. If it's over 40%, it's a buyer's market. If it is below 30%, sorry, let me get that. Yeah, let me phrase that
40%, 30%.
No, numbers. Right. If it's over 40%, it's a seller's market. If it's under 30%, it is a buyer's market. And there are certain different extremes of that. And anything between 30 and 40 is more of a balanced market. I'm just trying to find a graph of one that I've done because I do this on a regular basis. Oh, here we are. So I'm just going to show this to you now, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on a second. So share, and here we go. Just show that. So ladies and gentlemen, my daytime job is I write articles about property markets and get agents to then publish it under their own name to make them look knowledgeable. And this is an article I write every 3 months for my clients, and we visualize this, and we can do this on every town in the UK. And you can see here that in 19, it was very much a balanced market in Grantham. We got the data for all of the UK here. Then she went up to an extreme seller's market in 21, 22. And then she's been around the buyer's market, drifting down, then drifting back up again. And this is a great way. You don't need my articles to make you look good. You could use this data yourself. And then if you were really smart, you would split this down into different types. Because then you can see that if semis are slagging, but lagging, but detached houses are really, you can target.
Yes.
Anyway, let's.
But that one slide in itself is a great conversation to have with your potential seller when you're doing a market appraisal, because you're giving the consumer insight into the market that they probably will not hear from any other lister in your area, and it gives them a good understanding of pricing, position, and when to go on the market. And I think it's really, really helpful to have that backdrop.
Excellent. I mean, what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is that as I'm sure most of you know, the Property Academy do a survey of 10,000 homeowners every year, and 36% of homeowners chose their estate agent based on their local property market knowledge. If I looked at most estate agents' social media, they just post listings. There's nothing wrong with posting listings, and the numbers are really good, but they won't actually get you other listings. So in the social media, please don't have to take my articles, but write about your local property market, not what you're selling, what's happening in the market, and you'll become the market guru. Okay, shall we go to Luton, or is there anything else?
Let's go.
Right, here we go.
No, let's go to Luton.
Right, so we're going to be using, ladies and gentlemen, a bit of kit that I'm a massive fan of, and I know Verona is as well. And this is called Insight. Insight is like Rightmove Plus on steroids with lasers and glitter balls. This is not just going back 1 year or 13 months, and I say I do like Rightmove Plus. I'm a fan of it. I actually think it's almost worth half the fee of Rightmove because it's great data in there. But
Agreed.
this is something next level. This what we're going to show you. So we're looking at the last 5 years, ladies and gentlemen, going back to the 1st of January 2020, and we're going to look at all the estate agents. We're going to be doing a little bit of lettings at the end. There isn't that much data on lettings, but we will look at lettings. And we will compare and contrast the different estate agents and see how well they perform over various different metrics. Okay, so we can see who's overvaluing, who's getting houses sold, who's how quick you're getting through your conveyancing, your exchange versus listings ratio. It's amazing, isn't it, Verona? We could spend hours on this, but we'll spend about 20 minutes on this, ladies and gentlemen. Do you have a coverage in Luton yourself with Yopa?
We do indeed. Yeah, Zoe Nichols is our franchise owner in
So we
Luton.
will be looking at that as well. And as I said, we will not be sprinkling sugar where it's not deserved. And we are not criticizing, ladies and gentlemen. We are just comparing the numbers. And if you can see this as a way to analyze your performance and compare yourself against your competitors so you know where you need to improve. Okay? So without further ado, here we go. So from the top, someone that's not watched this, and again, I want to stress to you is this, ladies and gentlemen, before we kick off. This Insights is a package which I don't earn any commission from if you buy. There is a free version, which is limited on the amount of information. There is a local version, a regional version, and a national version of this. And you pay your shekels to 228, and they give you this data. If you are interested in buying this bit of kit, you can approach them. Do not mention my name because I don't earn any commission. I'm just a massive fan of it. I use the data. The data that you saw in the first part of the show is the data. So basically, that's where the data comes from, but we're zeroing it on Luton. Again, it's how you interpret the data, isn't it, Verona, and what you need to do to improve it. So without any further ado, let's kick on. So starting off with the residential sales. And Verona, just cut across me if you see something that you might find interesting. Sure. So we're starting off with January 2020 to the 21st of Jan 2025. The graph here shows you how the market share of new listings is. And what we're going to do is the average price of a property in Luton is 322,740. We'll go down the different agents and see if they've improved or dropped or stayed the same with regard to market share, because we all know agents love to measure themselves on their market share. So we'll start off with Indigo. So as you can see there, their average price is 334, which is very, very similar to the average price there. So they appear to be a middle of the road estate agent. Their market share here, I would say, again in 2021 was around the 12% mark. It's been drifting slightly, so it's now around the 10% mark. So again, we're not criticizing here, but it appears that Indigo's market share has drifted slightly. Not a criticism, because again, we don't know what fees you're charging. And again, Verona, it's really important that if you're charging 50% more, but your market share has gone down by 20%, you're actually earning a shed load more money.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a metric that matters to some agents and less so to others. So it all depends on your strategy, right? But in fairness, they're clearly a market leader, although Penrose are very close behind them, and they're drifting a little bit, but looks like Penrose are drifting in a similar kind of vein. So I'm interested as to who's picking up the shortfall.
Indeed. And what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to look at a number of things. We'll look at the raw numbers for 5 years. We'll look at the raw numbers for the last 12 months to see if there's someone that wasn't appearing early doors that's in there now. And what we'll also do is we'll look at the upper quartile to see if there's an agents in there that I don't know if there's an upper quartile market, but we will have a look. So let's go and look at Connells. Well, that's impressive.
So there you go. Connells has taken a little bit from the top two by the looks of it.
Yeah, well done, Connells, on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is impressive. Yeah, average price 307, so that's just below. So they're probably more of a Tesco's agent if we're using an analogy of supermarkets. But I'm liking that. So big, massive well done there to everyone in Connells. And that, interestingly, nationally, Connells are one of the only agents in the top, apart from you you're growing, EXP are growing, but most are either treading water or most of them are actually
Or dripping back.
dropping back.
Yeah.
Connell's massive organisation, they've stayed the same, if not actually slightly improved, but nowhere near that.
And the challenge there is when you're already at significant scale, it's harder to gain share. When you're already at that scale, it's much easier for a smaller organization to grow share significantly. So yeah, well done, Connell's Luton.
Okay, let's go and look at urban and rural. Now, urban and rural, if memory serves me well, almost like a franchise where basically each one is owned by the franchisee.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so they sit there.
They've lost share over that period as well.
So far out of the, again, we're looking at the big agents by property count. So again, if you're a younger agent, you won't be appearing in it. We will come to you in a second. Let's go and see what Hart are doing. Again, that's a slight drift downwards. Okay.
Yeah.
Taylor's, slight growth in 2021, but again, pretty stable around that 7%.
Reasonably static. Yeah. Yeah.
Go and look at Venture. Again, a slight driftings from around 5% down to around 3 or 4%. Okay.
Yeah.
Owned by my co-owned by one of my mates, Neil Briggs, top lad, like him. He's more based in Milton Keynes, but I think he bought into Venture. Let's go look at Esquire and Esquire Estates. Again, there's a drift down there.
Little drift, yeah.
Gigs and
Similar.
Again, it looks like he had a good 2021-22. I mean, that's Gigs, and I know he's got his old work colleague, Mr. Bell. Met him once, really interesting guy. But again, a slight drifting down there. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if your fees are higher, we're not but just your market share. Again, we as agents are very good at only looking at last 6 months, 12 months.
Absolutely.
Right, PB.
I think it's also the data that we're going to come to will add more color to this as well. This is only one metric, right? So we have to remember that.
Yeah, we've got many metrics, agents of Luton.
Exactly.
Purple bricks, again, a slight drifting down. That matches again, though. That matches the UK. Purple bricks are growing.
Yeah, the national picture. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Okay.
Yeah.
Town and country. Again, with the lower numbers, you're going to get a bit spiky. General.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, there's you. Let's see what you go. Hey, look at that. You're growing.
Yeah.
It's great to see. Okay, then. I didn't know this.
Well done, Zoe.
Good stuff. I tell the co-presenters what town we're doing before they just come on the show.
Literally just before, so I've had no visibility of this. Yeah.
Okay, that's household. Let's go.
And even if I did, I can't fudge the numbers.
You can't. Okay. Auction house.
So this would be interesting. Okay, yeah. So that's a slight growth curve, I'd say.
VA. Okay. Nova, like that name. Deakin White. You move, or just do a few more of these. L&D. Now, interestingly, I wonder if they're the same agent. I bet you they are.
Yeah, that looks like they are. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good point.
So we've almost got to add those two together, but still quite small. So if you'd be up at, you added them together, you'd be at 15 or 16. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Strike. Obviously, they finished, but again, Ashton. Don't think they've got a branch there, but they must obviously on the outskirts. Just so you're aware, ladies and gentlemen, the Luton postcodes are, we'll just pull this up, 1 to 4. So so you're aware of that, ladies and gentlemen. Just EXP, we'll just go down to number 30. Let's just have a quick look at the upper quartile. Okay, so we will go.
What is the upper quartile in Luton then, do we think?
It would be the first, it would be the 5,000 most expensive hounds.
Yeah, I mean what is the value is where I'm going.
There, 40,000 above. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. So again, the Luton, the demographic, I wouldn't expect million houses. I mean, just to give you an idea, in that patch, there's been 142. So the numbers are all over the place with the million pound stuff. Looks like Penrose have had. That's good to see that they're beating, but there isn't a Savills office there. Let's take it down to 600. Let's just see what's happening there. Penrose and Indigo. So again, what that's telling me, which is quite rare, that the volume agents are also the number
Are
one
also market leaders for the upper
as well.
quartile.
So
Yeah,
that is quite
yeah,
rare. So that's
it is
good.
there.
That's good to see. Anything on? Okay. So let's move on. Just while we're here, let's just have a quick look at stock levels for Luton, and it just shows you here that that the number of properties for sale. Okay, we won't do December. Oh, no, let me just. I need to pull that, drag that across
And
there. There we go. Here we go. So as we went in, we only do these 4 months because the numbers are a bit lively throughout the month. So you can see here that there are 1,681 properties for sale currently in the Luton postcodes, which is 60, just over 60%, nearly 70% more than the 2021. So there's
yeah,
ladies and gentlemen of Luton agents, that you can use if someone says, well, you realise that there's 68% more homes for sale today compared to 2021. Although what is quite interesting, it's nice and tight more recently. Okay, so
definitely. Yeah.
and again, this just shows you the stock levels that you can go and who seems to be growing here. Connell's stock levels. Well, that matches with
Right,
their
that matches their profile. Yeah,
it does.
yeah.
So again, that's
I mean, it's interesting looking at the market in its totality. It's a reasonably predictable market, isn't it? You know, there's not much interchange between the brands, and outside of there was only really a couple that showed any growth. So Connell's was one, Yopa was another, but mostly others were either reasonably static or slight declines. So there's not a lot of interchange between
no.
the success of the brands. Looking at that.
Well, it looks like apart from Connell's, it looks like everyone's staying in their lane with some of the agents just drifting off. Now,
Yeah.
what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is that my daytime job is I help estate and letting agents grow their market shares through local property marketing, talking about the property market. And again, as we said earlier on, 36% of homeowners choose their estate agents because of their local property market knowledge. So if your social media is looking a little bit listings, and you wanted some property data to make yourself look awesome and the most knowledgeable agent in the town, please do pick up the phone to me. I know my colleague has been sending you, should have sent you an email with a copy of this report to you on Friday if you're watching this. But if you haven't got it, then just send me a message through LinkedIn. Okay, let's move on and look at some more data. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, there is some truly amazing data here that is, and I'm
This
sure
is gold dust information.
you've
Gold
spotted
dust.
it. I'm sure you've spotted it as well. And ladies and gentlemen, most estate agents will look at your new instructions and your new instruction market sale for the last year. Yeah, can't blame you at all. Really, really can't blame you at all. So at the contracts, that's showing you the number of properties sold. Again, it's great to see. And we've got here price changes and fall throughs. We'll come to those in a second. But the true gold here, ladies and gentlemen, are in these 4 columns here: exchanged and withdrawn, and the percentages. If you add up those two there, 47.45 and 52.55, they add up to 100%. In my humble opinion, and it is a humble opinion, this is the most important stat as an estate agent should measure. How many of the houses that I put onto the market do I actually end up getting paid on? And Connell's are exchanging on 47.5%, and Indigo are at 67%, which means Indigo have almost a 50% greater chance of getting the property exchanged, i.e. getting the house moved, compared to Connell's. I'm not criticising Connell's, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just telling you what the figures are stating. So really, Connell's market share growth, we don't know what their percentage was before, but they're not shifting as many houses, are they?
No, they're listing them, but they're clearly not exchanging or completing on as many as some of their counterparts in their area.
So the average in Luton is 50.28, but Indigo at 67, Penrose at 62, Urban and Rural at 66, Hart at 39. Well done.
Ooh,
Hey guys.
yeah,
Okay. Taylor's at
it's
40,
not a good number.
Venture at 53, RW Invest. Now I will just say for record, they're a new homes builder, and therefore their stats are a little bit skewed. So we've got to take that with a big pinch
I
of
hope
salt.
they're a big bit skewed because 12% is not a good outcome.
It is. I mean, what we'll do, we'll just take those out because that is not an appropriate number to put it. That's comparing apples with pears, and that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
So the average goes up to 51% now, but still, there is a huge.
There's a wide variance there.
That is,
Massive variance.
you're absolutely right. Last week we were in where were we? We're in Bath, and it was you couldn't put a fact paper between the two.
Right. Yeah.
This
So a
is
very tight market.
This is
Yeah.
from in the
And
top. Go on.
if you're an agent in any of those higher performing businesses, this is gold dust. If I'm Gigs and Bell and I'm in the lounge, I am using this data every single conversation to talk about my exchange rate. 85% sales agreed and 72% exchanges versus my competitors, who the number one lister, who sales rate is 54% and exchanging at 47%. I mean, that's going to get you the business all day long.
And look at Manton's, even better. Not much compared to Gigs.
Yeah, phenomenal.
I said at the start of the show, this is data that will make you stand out and prove that overvaluing. In a minute, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to look at the overvaluing stats. But that's showing me. I think that's the most important metric there is. Yes.
Yeah.
Does the house sell? Do I get it at a good price? And is it hassle-free on the time scale I want? We're going to measure all of those. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just have a quick.
Just scroll down a little because I was just looking at so purple bricks at 41%. That genuinely surprises me.
They're not one of the best in the country.
Pardon?
They're normally one of the best.
Exactly. That surprises me. That's normally higher. Okay. And actually, looking at Yopa, so SSTC, interesting. SSTC 80%, 50% exchange rate. So I'm guessing some of that is about timing, actually, because an SSTC rate of 80% and an exchange rate of 52 doesn't make sense statistically. So some of that will be about timing. But yeah, purple bricks is normally much higher than 41%, but even their SSTC rate is 52%. That's a massive drop compared to how they normally perform nationally.
And what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in the lower end of this league table, the numbers and the timing are so important. You might say, well, where do they get their data from? Well, 20EA don't just scrape the websites or your websites or Rightmove because of they're part of 20CI. They're involved with conveyancing, so they get all the data from that and they bring it all together. So it's not just scraping of websites here. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I would expect with an 80% sales up to contract rate, I would expect a much higher exchange rate. Probably if we move the price banding here, that probably will change the numbers. I'm not going to
flash out, And Leaders is an interesting one. 23% SSTC and 21% sale agreed, number 23 down the bottom.
I don't know. Interesting. I'm not sure if Leaders tend to buy competitors out, but if they buy them for the lettings book, so they might be amazing at lettings.
Good point. They may be winding down the sales operation even. Yeah, there could be a good reason for that. That's a good point.
But there's some great data there, ladies and gentlemen, that you can have a look at, and this proves.
You can have a field day on this, can't you?
Let's look at fall through rates. So the average is 27.54, and these are quite tight, although this one's quite low. Taylor's have got a low fall through rate at 19%, and who's got a 36? That's quite high. So that is Hart and Venture. So it looks like your fall through rates are a bit higher than the average. Price changes. Wow. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The average is 41%. Connell's at 45%. So let's see in a second if they've been overvaluing, because we talked about earlier in the show. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've been sent this link starting at Luton, zoom back to the start of the show where myself and Verona have been talking about the difference between ethical overvaluing and unethical overvaluing. And we discussed that at length, and we can tell by the stats whether someone's doing ethical overvaluing or unethical. I'm not going to mention it now because I think that's a line that's just a bit over the top. But I can see here that the price change, who's got stock management? Indigo. But again, look, here's a great tip. Look, they're obviously pricing them well. We will check in a second, but their price reduction
Yeah,
at 30%, but their exchanges are at 67. Now,
yeah,
here, these Penrose and Urban, they've got slightly higher price change ratios, but they're still getting the exchanges through. So I'm wondering if
yeah,
they're doing a more ethical overvaluing and getting the prices
yeah.
quick. Should we go and have a look and see who is overvaluing?
Yes, please. I'm intrigued.
Bloody hell. Sorry, Scoop. Sorry.
Ooh.
This is fascinating, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm.
Fascinating. Right, what have we got here? So, what we're looking at here is the order of the agents is just purely based on new instructions, right? The number is irrelevant for this purpose. What we're looking at is this. I'll have to explain this nice and slowly because this is 20. The problem with insights is it's a bit of a data geek heaven, which myself and Verona just love to bits. However, it's not necessarily that user-friendly on the doorstep. But if you can explain it in this way, you're onto a winner. Right. Number one, 20EA will do an AVM, an automated valuation model figure on every property in the UK. And that's a live figure that you can get from them. They will then look at what you put the house on the market for. So therefore, Connell overvaluing by 1.75. The average for the town is 1.5. So 1.75. Indigo at 1.23, Penrose at 1.64, urban and rural. You can see the numbers all down here. Then what did you achieve from your original asking price? So Connells are reduced, big reduction numbers. They're reducing the average price between the original asking price and what it eventually sold for is 5.52. Indigo at 3.59. Penrose at 2.96. That's what that's saying to me is everyone's overvaluing, but roughly overvaluing by the same amount. And then
Correct.
what we're achieving, we've got some agents in there that are being really hammered, saying this sort of area here where they're being dropped by 5 or 6%. Now, the problem with percentages, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot of people don't understand them or get them. So therefore, what 20EA do is this. If you put a £350,000 house on the market, what would you achieve for it? So let's just remind ourselves, Indigo, 67, exchange. So you've got nearly a 7 in 10 chance to selling, and Penrose 62. And here we go. This is what Indigo and Penrose would get for an average house in Luton compared to, say, Connell's. That's showing you not only will you more likely sell your house, but I'll get you more for it.
You get a price. Yep.
It's so
the market share decline that they have experienced is actually not damaging their revenue because they're completing on more properties overall. So actually from a revenue perspective, that is helping them. So the Connell's growth that we were applauding on slide 1 has turned in the other direction now. So they're listing more, so they're putting more effort in. They're not completing on as many, and they're achieving less per property for the customer than the other two brands are. So yeah, that's interesting.
Isn't it? We did promise the ladies and gentlemen what's happened in the last year. Okay, and then Connells are now number 1 as opposed to number 3 over the last 5. We'll just see if there's anyone new here that just needs a good shout out. In particular, no. Again, look. And this is the magic thing is this. Everyone, we're all very good at waving our what's names about and you know me. One of the things I really pet hate, so it's not more than pet hate, it's a zoo hate, is right move pie charts. Because it's bragging. You can say, well, why are we using this? We're not the agents. We're not bragging. We're just giving you great data where you can get yourself better at being an agent. And again, some stuff here, you're all overvaluing, but some of you are doing a better job at negotiating.
Yeah. Right. And if you go right to the end column, the variance to the average, that is in its most simplest form, the ones that show the amber on the right-hand side of that line versus those on the red, that they are achieving the best outcome for the customers. That's essentially what that final column is telling you.
And that is the pound note against the average in Luton. So
correct.
So
Yeah.
you could say, Penrose could say, we get £4,021 more than the average Luton agent for your property. Now, we'll set the record, ladies and gentlemen. If you are going to use this data, you have to do it in a certain way so you don't get clobbered by the ASA. Okay?
Yeah.
If you post this just because of this video, I can't help you and I can't protect you. And 20EA can't protect you. You have to have that. If you take on and again, it sounds like we're in a sales platform. We're not, but basically, if you have this data, they'll tell you the way that you can say it without being clobbered and you don't get sued. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. How long are properties taking to sell? On average, 70 days compared to last year, which was 67 in 23 and 70 days in 24. We can see here that in terms of who's selling houses the quickest, Venture selling the houses quickest at 42 days. We can just go down the line here. You can see that. And then the pink line is your sales progression. So you can see they're the top 10 biggest estate agents. So therefore, if I was looking to sell a house really quickly, I'd go with Venture or Indigo, if that was the most important thing. Anything on this before we go to look at the lettings?
Nothing to add on that.
Right then, let's look at the lettings. So again, we're looking at LU 1234. Interestingly, let's just have a quick look at the average rent in 2020. 847 compared to last year, it was 1,314. Huge difference.
Wow. Yeah.
Again, this is the sort of data that you could be using in your social media to attract landlords to your agency. Again, I use this all the time to strip out data and create social media posts for agents. So let's just have a look and just see. So immediately, we're talking about the elephant in the room.
No surprise there.
Ladies and gentlemen, open rent nationally have gone from 5% to about 18 or 19% in the UK. Half of the properties that they put on the market last year, actually 51.2%, had previously been on the market with a high street agent. The biggest challenge to UK letting agency is not the renters' right bill, it's this, open rent. You need to prove that you're worth your fee. We're like swans. All we do is we're busily working underground with our feet as a swan. We're graceful. All we do is ring up the landlord and say to the landlord, with problems, your tenant hasn't paid the rent, the shower needs fixing. People are going to think, well, come on, I can do this. I can save myself some money. And they won't tell you that they're going to open rent because they don't want that argument with you. What they'll simply take. And this is it. So, and this is the job I do for estate and letting agencies. I guide and support you and coach you on how to make sure the landlords don't leave, but also give you content to make sure that there are new landlords attracted to you by other agents. So if you are a letting agent in Luton and you want more business, then do give me a call. I can only work for one agent per Luton, so it's up to you. Right, let's go look at leaders. We talked about leaders, didn't we?
We did. We touched on leaders. That doesn't look like acquisition, does it? No, I mean, it could be a business that's just been rebranded, actually. That's a good point. But, their share in rental has clearly dipped a bit as well.
You tend to find is that this is new instructions, which is a kind of a great way to work out what your portfolio size is. Because looking at this data, I can tell within a 10% variance what their portfolio is. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Let's look at Penrose. That's steady.
Steady. Yeah.
Donald. Indigo.
Pretty steady.
Slight drifting by Indigo. Heart.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
declining.
VA property consultants. We'll just go down the list. Again, you can see how the average rent is changing to see if you are your stock is higher or lower. Venture, nice and steady. Bedfordshire Accommodation Bureau, love that name. Luton Heights.
Interesting name, yeah.
Go down to, oh, look, if it's interesting names, click that property, like that one. We'll just go down to number 25, just to allow people to see where you are. getting small now, so
Yeah, yeah.
but
Ah, Belvoir. You're down the list a bit. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah.
okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's the lettings data. There is a bit more lettings data, but with the time, the hands of the clock are moving on. We don't want to keep these ladies and gentlemen too long. Final words with the amazing Verona Frankish.
I mean, I loved looking through Luton. Actually, I thought it was a really interesting market to kind of observe, and that's what I love about this data, Chris. You know, I don't know the Luton market that well, but you get a really good sense of any town and the players that are in that town and how the businesses are evolving by just looking at the data. And then, of course, if you're already operating in the town, you're going to have a lot of that anyway. So just adding that data and the evidence against to overlay your anecdotal feelings about a town is super useful. So yeah, I think, as I said a little bit earlier, we've got a really interesting year ahead. We've got off to a great start, and it's going to be so interesting to see how this year plays out. But I'm feeling uber positive about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your insight today. Thank you for watching the show. All the Luton agents, hope you've enjoyed that. My VA will keep in contact with you on a regular basis moving forward with regard to sending you data. And if you're a Luton agent and you wanted me to analyze something in greater detail, then do pick up the phone, send me a message on LinkedIn. My telephone number is 07950 147 572. And my VA has sent an email to your branch with my mobile number as well. So do check that out if it might have gone into spam. Verona, thank you for your time today. Amazing as always. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week for week 3 of the UK Property Market Stat Show, where we'll be looking at a different town or city and looking at the UK property market. Thank you very much.